Hey guys, so we're going to ignore the terrible lighting that's going on here, and I'm going to apologize in advance if any of my birds, like that, make any noise. Sometimes my background music covers it up, but depends on how loud they are. In general, I get a lot of questions about how I usually plan out my books, and I tend to say that I either don't do any planning or that I will do a very short outline that I may or may not follow. Both of those things are true, but I really do plan my books. I just don't do it in a conventional way that would work for most people. But since I'm starting a brand new series, or at least starting the planning process for a brand new series, I thought I would walk you guys through how I typically do it because I thought that you might find that interesting. This process will take course over the will take place over the course, there you go, of several videos, so that one video isn't like an hour long. My one bird is making noise every single time that I talk, and every time I look at her, she stops. In this case, though, I'll be walking through the possibility of a series for Jamal Pitman, who is a main character in, well, a side main character in my Kathy Baker series and my Bo Austin series. In both of these series, he's the police chief in one of the departments in Los Angeles. But it's constantly hinted at the fact that he has a very dark past, as in he used to kill people for a living, both for the government and otherwise, CIA, that kind of thing, and still does so when the situation arises and presents itself to him. My readers over on Wattpad would actually like to see a spin-off series for him, and I apologize for that, when he was younger, and I like to give my readers whatever I possibly can because of their support throughout the Bo Austin series. When it comes to Jamal, this process starts with a mess of information. Is this the original one? Hold on. This is the original one. It starts with a mess of information. I have a close-up of this that will come later on in the video. It starts with me skimming through the Kathy Baker series to find little bits of information about him and his past and his life, and to see if I knew when he was born, and to see if I know if he had kids or a wife or what happened to his parents. I had to go through and find all of that. I had to read through all 7 finished Bo Austin books. I'm currently working on the 8th one, and I had to find out if anything was mentioned about him there. It starts with finding out when he was born and working a timeline from then, as well as working a backward timeline from his current place in the Bo Austin series, which takes place in like 2024, I do believe. In general, it's a lot of math and a lot of calculating and a lot of messiness, as you saw. I'm going to show you a clip that I took last night or the night before, I really can't remember, the night before, and show you what it looked like at that time, and then we will go from there. Okay, so that was my original mess. You can go ahead and ignore the Albert Fish and Carl Tanzler scribbles at the top of the page there toward the end of the clip. Those are 2 real-life people, one a serial killer, one a corpse keeper, and have nothing to do with this series. I just write down random information on whichever piece of paper happens to be in front of me when I find it. That's all. Oops. Anyway, as you can see, it's a lot of compiled information, and it jumps all over the place and has literally no organization. There were dates up at the top that were 1981, and then at the bottom we were back to 1969, and then at the top again we went back to Jamal's birthday and a whole bunch of other people's birthdays, and on the side it's a whole bunch of information that I forgot was important until after I was done. So that's why it's a rough draft, and that's why there are multiple rough drafts, so that way I can keep adding information as I find it, and I can reorganize things, and I can try to fit it in so that way it actually fits. And it's a long back and forth process that I do over and over again until it's as close to perfect as I can get it, until I realize, of course, that there's more missing information, in which case I just add it and make a mess. Casual stuff. But then I go ahead and started my second rough draft, which is this and this. I do believe there's a video of that in here as well. If not, I will add one. The only thing I knew for sure was that Jamal started his training with a mafia family when he turned 16, which, doing the math, would have been in 1966. I don't know how to pronounce this actual name. It's Italian. I do not speak Italian. In order to make it easier for myself, I have been pronouncing it Lucchese, which I know is not it, so at least I'm accepting of that fact, but that is what I'm going to call it. Although the name comes from a real mafia family, it isn't set in real life. It's not set with the actual people or descendants of the real people. And because of that, the man running the mob has no real correlation to the real Tommy Lucchese, who took over the family in real life somewhere between like 1951 and 1953. I do believe it's sketchy on when the previous leader died and when he took over. But one of my other books revolves around that family, the fictional version, in 2025, if I recall correctly, and Alessandro Lucchese runs the family in that book, but he would be far too young at this point in Jamal's history to be the boss, so I would need to skip up to Alessandro's father, and I always come over to a fantasy generator site when I need a name in a different language, and the link in the description to the Italian generator that I used is in the description. That wasn't a sentence, but in general, the link to the generator I used is in the description. I ended up choosing the name Antonio from the Italian website and decided I wanted him to have some severe work experience. So I made him 39, turning 40, which in short means he was born in 1926. To choose the name of Jamal's father, who was also working within that family, I headed on over to Baby Name Wizard and typed in Jamal's name. When I want names that like correlate with each other, I tend to go there because there's a name list on the side that has if this name has a brother or sister in real life, what is their name? So they are real people who are actually related to each other in real life. So the names fit together, and I like it that way. In general, it typically guarantees that they do sound like they belong in a family together. I ended up choosing Malcolm for Jamal's father's name, jotted it down, calculated Pitman Sr.'s correct birthday and his age and all of that fun stuff, and wrote those down as well. Because of my other book that involves this mafia family, The Rise of Viper, I do know a bit about the family and what happens to them. So I know that eventually Antonio's son takes over and has a daughter of his own. I know that the daughter, Venetia, is born in 2005. Because of that, I have to figure out an appropriate age for the son, Alessandro, and his wife to have a child. For a woman, this is generally under the age of 40 simply because of genetics and when they can no longer have children. I ran through several calculations on this one, which I'm going to show you now. The long version of what's going on up there is that if Alessandro was born in 1980, he would have only been 45 when he dies in The Rise of Viper, and that seemed far too young to me in general. So instead I did things backward to see when everything would work better, and I decided that I wanted him to die at the age of 60 instead, which means he would have been born in 1965 and had his daughter when he was 40. This worked for me, so I wrote that down as well. Again, because these are rough drafts, it's totally okay if they're messy and or out of order. Mine totally is. It's a second draft. None of it matters. I'm going to keep redoing it until it's relatively not a mess. As you can see in that last little frame, I went ahead and made Alessandro's wife 5 years younger than he was to make sure that she could get through childbirth without too many issues. She's currently unnamed in this situation because I can't remember if her name was mentioned in The Rise of Viper or not. Since filming this part of the video, I have gone back through The Rise of Viper and figured out that her name was Maria, but that will come back. Maria or Marie. I honestly can't remember at the moment. It's written down somewhere. That'll be out in a later video though. But either way, it'll all be figured out before I make the final timeline. Again, over on the baby name wizard site, I typed in Jamal's name, chose a related name, and jotted it down for his brother's name. This one was Malik. I didn't have an exact birth date at this point because I didn't have a date picked out for when Jamal's mother died, which happens when the child is born, yada yada yada. And I'm unsure if his mother's name is mentioned in Kathy Baker's series or the Bo Austin series, so I still have to do a bit of skimming to find out. I do not think that it's mentioned in either, but who knows? there are currently at least 15 books with Jamal in them. There are 6 Kathy Baker series, books in the Kathy Baker series, and there are 8 books in the Bo Austin series, 7 of which are completed. The 8th one is currently in progress for Camp Nano. There will be many more, and I do not think Jamal's name is mentioned in any other books, but it's honestly hard to remember. But because there are at least 15 of them, it's a lot of information to sort through in one sitting, and I think I started doing this at like 5 or 6 in the evening in the middle of me writing for Camp Nano, because I'm really bad at sticking to one thing. That's why I write 4 books during Camp Nano. I'm a crazy person. I deal with it. Anyway, much like the original rough draft for this timeline, I jotted down information whenever it came to me. But this time I also made sure I was incorporating a whole bunch of information from the original draft to make sure I didn't miss anything. Because I don't want these videos to be unbearably long or anything, and this one has already gotten a little longer than I wanted it to be, I'm going to stop this one here and come back with part 2 soon. I don't have an exact date promised because I don't know how much longer it will take me to sort out the mess I have created over here with the Jamal stuff. I'm already on rough draft 3 in reality, but it depends on how the series goes. But either way, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.